And so, ritual, right? What is a ritual? What is a ritual, and how can it support us? How do they support us? I consider this annual hike a ritual that I have connected with, engaged with for the last 8 years of my life. You might call it a tradition. We have different words for things. But I first started coming here when I first began really feeling the initial waves of grief of my divorce 9 months after I moved out. And in those first 9 months, I was living so much in survival that I was numb to feeling anything. And then all of a sudden, just like those waterfalls, my emotions started to flow like nothing I'd ever experienced. And it was in that time that I felt pulled to see what these mountains had to offer. It felt like there was medicine up here. And I remember on my first drive up here, I remember crying and crying and crying and screaming and just letting my emotions move through my body on the drive up. And I think it was the most I'd ever let myself cry in my whole life. But what's so interesting to me, and what I'm inspired to share here, is it has been so remarkable to me to return back, to have a place that I call sacred, that I return back to every year, to connect with myself, to connect with the greater forces of healing, the elements of nature. And most of all, every time I come here, I'm a different person. I'm a different person. The cells in my body have changed. The neurons in my brain have changed. And yet, I'm still here. This is still Joanna. And it's astounding to me, thinking back on the young one that was here 8 years ago with such a broken heart, and she wasn't even sure if she'd be able to summit these mountains. I really didn't know. I had to give up all attachment to making it to the top of the mountain. If my intention had been to summit the mountain, I would have missed the point completely. So my intention was to just be really present with what wanted to emerge in the moment, and let that be enough. And to just be in my body and feel my body and breathe and stay really, really, really present with the nuanced distinction between what my mind said should be happening, what my body was saying it needed, and what nature was saying wanted to emerge. Like being really present with all of these things and just allowing that presence in. It's remarkable connecting back with the same trail every year and just feeling so much growth, so much progress. And most of all, I feel so whole. I feel so healed. I feel so alive. I feel so at ease, and I just feel so grateful to be here. And I think it's remarkable that we have technology where we're able to share this mountain medicine and to share these experiences with one another. Look at this ridgeline. Isn't this just remarkable? So these things, right? Rituals, traditions, it's like a heartbeat that we can create. Or perhaps more accurately, it's like a beat of a drum, the beat of consciousness itself, universal consciousness that we just start to naturally align ourselves with. And within this beat, there's a real steadiness. There's a consistency. There's a sense of grounding. The things that we return back to again and again and again to know ourselves better, to focus on gratitude. Many people have traditions around the holidays. They'll have certain foods, they'll go to certain places, maybe they'll have certain types of activities that they share with one another. And this is something that I had longed for, traditions and things that just created a sense of stability in my life. And I didn't realize when I first started climbing these mountains that this would become a tradition, that this would become a ritual, my way to connect and reflect and feel even closer to the heavens, even closer to the cosmos with my feet still on the ground. And I highly, highly, highly encourage, especially if you're in a time of your life where you're going through a lot of transition, or you're going through a lot of grief, or there's just a lot of newness, you're rediscovering yourself in some way. Find something that you feel inspired to connect with, something that's pulling you from deep in your heart. It might be a place, it might be a mountain, it might be a place in nature, or it might be an activity like painting with watercolors. I don't know. You know what it is. You know what's calling you. But follow that impulse and play with the idea of allowing it to be something that you do just for you, that you return back to every year, just to see how far you've come, just to track your progress. And something that wants to come through is you don't need to wait for anyone else to have your own traditions. You can create traditions and celebrations and rituals just for you. And maybe you invite other people into it. But I think for a long time, I had a belief that said if I wasn't in a relationship, then what was the point of having things that I did just for me? But I'm so glad that this has become a ritual. I'm so glad that this has become my tradition of connecting and reflecting and just loving these younger parts of me that, years ago were just doing the best they could. It's really opened my heart in such magnificent ways, and I want the same for others. So maybe you're inspired to climb a mountain. Maybe you're inspired to come up with a new activity. Maybe you're inspired to start a tradition with friends or with family. But the things that you do consistently, it's like your way of entraining your heartbeat to the heartbeat of the universe. That's what this is all about. Joseph Campbell had a beautiful quote about that. So grateful to share this beautiful day with you.